I knew since I was young that I wanted to be my own boss. I didn't know what that meant. Like, I didn't grow up with entrepreneurship education or financial education. I didn't even know what entrepreneurship was until I was in college. I thought that I was going to be a doctor, but I never really wanted to work in a hospital. When I thought I was going to be a doctor, I thought I was going to open up my own clinic, my own dermatology office or an ophthalmology office, because those kind of are like the cream of the crop for every Indian kid to go out and become a dermatologist or an ophthalmologist or maybe an orthopedic surgeon. But for me, I wanted dermatology or ophthalmology. But I don't really know why. That's just what kind of was a standard then. And so I knew that I didn't want to work for somebody else. And then when I got to college, that's when I really got involved in my own entrepreneurial ventures. And it became very clear to me that number one, I don't want to work for somebody else. And number two, I don't want to be a doctor. And when my parents found out that I wasn't going to be a doctor, they weren't very happy. So we kind of compromised, and they said that I can go to law school. That way I can keep some pride in the family. So I went to law school knowing that I didn't want to work as an attorney, and I graduated law school, and I never worked a day as an attorney, although I am a licensed attorney and I'm not your attorney. So I started my entrepreneurial kind of mindset early on because I knew I didn't want to work for somebody else. And through my 20s, that was my focus, that I wanted to build something that I could run, that I could create my way and didn't have to work for somebody else. Now, the interesting thing about this is when you have this idea of entrepreneurship that I'm not going to work for anybody else, I'm going to set my own hours, I'm going to do my own thing, it's not as glamorous as it always sounds, because you feel like, oh, I could just work on the beach, I can do whatever I want, I can travel whenever I want. But if you really want to build a business, it takes a lot of sacrifice. It takes a lot of hours and it takes a lot of work, but that's kind of besides the point for this video. Because if you're going to start a business, just understand that it's going to take a lot out of you. But I knew that I wanted to create something for myself, and I was willing to take risks to do that. And one of those risks was when I was in law school, I knew that I wasn't getting the full value out of law school. Like, everyone that I knew in law school was taking all the extracurriculars, going and learning a lot of things with judges, meeting with the judges, going to the courtrooms, and just practicing a lot of that traditional legal stuff. I wasn't doing that. And that was a risk for me, because if I graduated law school, I wasn't going to be a very competent or experienced attorney. I knew that. And so I would have had a really difficult time finding a good paying job as an attorney, even though I did good in law school, because I didn't have the full experience that everybody else had. I was in law school going through the motions, but most of my effort was focused on how can I build my business? How can I build my revenue? How can I build my assets? So that was the first thing, was I was willing to take a risk knowing what I wanted. But the second thing that really helped me out, which started not when I was 20, but a little bit later, towards the early 20s, was controlling my spending, because I worked in the event planning space. That was my first real company. I had an event planning company, started off as a party promotion company. I was hosting parties when I was in college. And in that industry, this event industry, it is a very showy industry. You got to show off the certain look, especially if you're working with DJs or working with clubs. Like, you want to have the certain look. So it was all about what watch do you have on your wrist? What kind of belt are you wearing? What kind of car are you driving? What kind of clothes are you wearing? It was all about this showy stuff. And so a lot of my money, whenever I made it, was going directly into my car. I upgraded my Toyota, put in new rims on my car, put in subwoofers on my car, 2 12-inch subwoofers, upgraded my sound system, I put tints on my car, put HID lights on my car. I mean, I really made this car look nice, and I spent a lot of money on watches, because that was just cool, having these like blinged out, shiny little watches. Well, when I realized that all these things that I was buying were not making me any money, these were liabilities, because I had no idea what a liability was. I had no idea what an asset was. I was so fortunate that it was funny. My dad actually gave me the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I don't know why he got it. I don't know how he got it. I don't know why he gave it to me. And I really don't know why I read it. I kind of just was forced to read it because I was sitting on a plane to India with nothing to do. So I just started reading that book. But that was the first time I ever learned about assets versus liabilities. Assets are some things that make you money. Like a business is an asset. A real estate investment is an asset. Your car is a liability. You can pour as much money in your car as you want, but you're not going to get that money back when you go to sell it. And that was the first time it ever really clicked to me that, whoa, I'm spending all my money on these things that don't really do anything for me in return. Yeah, they make me look cool. Yeah, they kind of give me a cool car and they give me this cool thing on my wrist, but it doesn't actually build me any wealth. And that was where I had this idea of, okay, if I want to become wealthy, because I knew I wanted to become financially free. I knew I wanted to make money. And this was a very taboo topic for me growing up, because in the traditional Indian house, you don't really talk about money like that. You're supposed to go out and become a doctor. You're supposed to go out and get good grades. You're supposed to go out and earn a big salary, but not really worry about money, which never really made any sense to me, but that's just kind of how it was for me growing up. But I knew I wanted to become financially successful because I wanted to give back to my parents. I saw how hard my mom and dad were working. I barely got to spend any time with my dad growing up because he was always working. When you come from an immigrant household, you don't take days off. You don't get Christmas off. You don't get New Year's Day off, because when you come from an immigrant household, those are the days where all your traditional Americans are celebrating and having holidays. And those are the days that immigrants go out and work, because that's time for you to get paid. So for me, I saw how hard my parents are working, and I wanted to have money so I could buy my dad's time back. And that was where, when I understood this spending concept, I completely flipped the way that I was spending my money. Because before, I went from earning money and spending everything to then spending nothing. I mean, I drove my shoes into the ground, and I'm not recommending you do this, but I drove my shoes into the ground where I had holes in my shoes. I started duct taping my shoes. I was going to the club sometimes with duct tape around my shoes, because that was just what made sense to me, because I don't want to waste any more money. Now, I went to an extreme, but I wanted to now keep as much money as possible for me. And I know that this one is a very difficult concept, because even still today, I have maintained a lot of relationships of people that worked in the same industry as me, that event planning industry, or people who are still in that club space, that DJ space, that video space, that whole, entertainment space. And you can make a lot of money in this space, but if you do not do something with the money that you earn, you are working for a paycheck. You just create your own job. And then what happens now is you might be making $200,000 a year. You might be able to make a lot of money in a weekend working at these gigs, working at these clubs, working at weddings. But the problem is, if you keep taking this money and you go out and buy a nice car, you buy a nice watch, you buy a nice home, you go on the nice vacations, you got a great lifestyle. Everything looks great. Like, you're living big, and you get to post it on social media too, because you're kind of in that showy industry. The problem is, if you ever stop working, that money stops coming in, but you still got the payments. And this is something I'm saying from personal experience, because I see this today with people that I know, people who are living this great lifestyle in that industry, because that's what you do in that entertainment industry. But if you ever stop working, or if the business stops coming in, or if something happens to you and you can't work because now you're self-employed, you stop getting paid. But you still got the car payment, you still got the house payment, you still got the utility payments, and you still got all the other financing payments for all the nice stuff that you have. When this clicked to me, because it has to actually click. It might seem obvious if you've been around the financial education space, but it's not. I'm telling you this. Until it clicks, you kind of just live that lifestyle where you work to earn more money, and then you buy nicer things, because when you start growing that income, time to get a nicer car, time to upgrade from a Toyota to BMW, maybe upgrade from a BMW to a Mercedes, maybe you go to a Maserati, maybe you go to something nicer so you can show it off, maybe you start flying first class, maybe you get yourself a Movado or a Rolex, maybe you get yourself a G-Wagon to go on the side, and it looks nice. But unless now you're taking some of the money and you're putting it aside for these assets, whether it's real estate, whether it's stocks, whether it's your own business, you gotta have this thing. Think about it like a retirement plan. How can you keep getting paid even if you're not working? If you enjoyed this short clip from my longer videos, here's another clip that I think you'll love. And while you're at it, if you're interested in learning more about how to start generating passive income, our team put together an amazing guide on how to start generating passive income for free. All you gotta do is click that button right over there. Thank you for watching, and as always, keep hustling.